Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about the afterlife as we delve into the realm of the supernatural. Brace yourself for bone-chilling footage captured by unsuspecting witnesses, revealing ghostly figures, unexplained phenomena, and spine-tingling encounters. These aren't your average blurry photos or shaky videos. This is raw, unedited proof of the paranormal, guaranteed to leave you questioning reality itself. Are you ready to face the chilling evidence that ghosts are real?
10 is the elevator ghost. Now when I first saw this video, nothing was really happening for the longest time, so I genuinely thought it was just gonna be a waste of my time, but then it was like a mic drop happened. To preface this, the owner of the footage is adamant that the footage is 100% authentic and real, so let's just take that and discuss. Now the CCTV footage was from February of 2008, and you can see two workers talking while waiting for the elevator. They eventually get into the elevator and talk some more, can't believe we're working overtime again, doesn't the boss suck, I didn't even get a Christmas bonus this year, etc, etc, you know how it is. And mind you, while they're talking, both guys are leaning against a little railing in the elevator. They reach their floor and they both leave, but as the one on the left lets go of the railing to leave, you see this white ghost zombie figure that is left behind, almost like the man was standing in the ghost, or vice versa. The men leave, not even realizing what was in the elevator with them the whole time, and this ghost has its skull hanging down really low and is walking very, very slowly out of the elevator as well. Now I don't even know how this could have been a hoax, because the ghost is literally there as soon as the man moves. Like, it wasn't edited, there was no compartment it could have been hiding in. I just don't see any fakeness in it, I just see horror. Let me know what you guys think. Fake or nah? Coming in at number 9 is the brown lady, and this photograph might be the most well-known ghost photo ever taken, ever. Now the infamous picture was captured back in 1936 by photographers who were documenting 17th century Raynham Hall in Norfolk, England for a magazine. It said that the photographer Captain Hubert had his head under the focusing cloth, so he wasn't really paying attention, but his assistant Indre Shearer exclaimed that she saw a veiled form gliding down the stairs and told him to quickly take a picture. Now he took the picture, but when he got out from under the focusing cloth to see for himself, the life form was nowhere to be found, which made him think Indre had made up the whole thing. But when the photo got developed, it was so very clearly in the middle of the staircase that it's actually astonishing. A full white pale shadow of an apparition that people think is Lady Dorothy Townshend. Dorothy died in the early 1800s from chickenpox, but other stories circulated saying her husband locked her in a bedroom forever because she committed adultery. That is a saucy story for a saucy ghost. At number 8 we have CCTV footage. So back in 2014 in New Mexico, surveillance footage at a police station revealed what appeared to be a ghost gliding along from the right side of the room to the left. Now according to officers, that area was completely secured, the gates were locked, none of the alarms went off or were tripped, so a real human being definitely did not make their way inside. Honestly, I don't know why we're giving this ghost a hard time and calling it out on the news. Like, maybe it was just a law-abiding ghost and it was just patrolling the station to keep it safe. Maybe it was a police officer when it was alive, so it was just having a nostalgic night. We don't know its story. Who are we to judge? Carry on, young ghost. On your way. Do what you were doing. Carry on. Shoo. Filling at number 7 slot is the baby crib Menace. Back in March of this year, a couple based in Michigan captured a blurry pale spirit form of some kind moving past their daughter Lily's crib. The footage caught on the baby monitor literally shows a white pale figure gliding past, and the couple even claimed that Lily sustained unexplainable scratches on her body after the incident, which they obviously blamed on the ghost. Nah, B, if a ghost is terrorizing my kid, you bet I would go ghost hunter on its ass and literally find a way to banish it into the ether, back into the afterlife, back to whatever hell it escaped from. Not on my watch, Casper. You ain't getting my kid. No, no. Now at number 6 is Lord Cumbermere. Amateur photographer Sybil Corbett set up her camera at the Cumbermere Abbey Library located in Cheshire, England. She took an hour-long exposure while the funeral of her brother-in-law Lord Cumbermere was happening 4 miles away. Now the Lord had died in a riding accident and was being buried simultaneously, but somehow when the photos were developed, an apparition can be clearly seen sitting on the seat in the photo, and people speculated that it was Lord Cumbermere since the chair was actually his when he was alive. On the other side, skeptics say a servant entered the room and sat in the seat while the exposure took place, and that's what the apparition was. But most, if not all, the staff was at the funeral itself anyway, and the apparition is wearing a collared shirt, which I don't think a servant would wear or could afford at the time, so I mean, I think the skeptics are very much wrong. Sorry. Haters gon' hate. Haters be sipping on that haterade. Coming in at number 5 is the Ghostly Pup. I know this list is meant to be horrifying and scary, but I mean, I found a ghost dog captured on film and it's honestly really cute, so I couldn't not include it. And I know there's enough dog lovers out watching this right now that I'd be forgiven, so I'm not even sorry. So anyway, the story of these dogs was written in the 1939 print of Life magazine, and it goes like this. The owner of this dog actually had 2 dogs, a cute little white terrier and a large other breed of dog, and both puppas were best friends. What a cute story. Sadly, the terrier died and the big dog was absolutely heartbroken, and I mean, that's very understandable. No one's trying to lose their best friend. Now a psychic photographer snapped a photo of the owner and the big dog, and you can very clearly see the spirit of the little dog hovering on the backside of the bigger one. It's like its head is just resting on the big dog's tailbone, and I thought this was so cute. Like the little one just misses the big one too. They both just miss each other. It's a very cute, heartwarming story. And we need that for number 5. A nice palate cleanser, you guys. At number 4 is Madonna. Not like a virgin Madonna, she's very much still alive, let's not get it twisted. This is Madonna of Bachelor's Grove. This photo was taken by the Ghost Research Society of America when they visited the abandoned Bachelor's Grove Cemetery back in 1991. Mary Huff was taking black and white infrared photographs on the site, and despite crazy readings being observed on her equipment, no one saw anything out of the ordinary. But when the film got developed, one photograph revealed a woman sitting on a tombstone on her own. She was wearing out-of-date clothing and was staring into the distance, so we don't really know what was going on with her. Was it her tombstone she was sitting on while contemplating why she was dead? Was she sitting on her mother's tombstone, her father's, her lover's? We have no idea. But she was very clearly captured, very clearly there. What's your story, Madonna? Filling our number 3 slot are the faces in the water. Now this one requires some backstory, so let's take it back. Back in December of 1924, James Courtney and Michael Meehan, 2 crewmen of the SS Watertown, had a freak accident on their vessel. The men were cleaning the cargo tank of the oil tanker but were suffocated by gas fumes and died quite quickly. They were buried at sea near the Mexican coast, but the next day one of the crew members reported seeing James and Michael's faces in the waves. The man saw their faces for a solid 10 seconds before they faded away, and it kept happening over the course of the next few days. When the vessel arrived in New Orleans, the paranormal events were relayed to the crew's employers, and they suggested trying to photograph the occurrence. Employers just don't care. They're like, oh, photograph that, I can sell it for millions. Goodbye. So Captain Tracy bought a camera for the rest of the trip, and when the faces did appear again, they captured this image. And ironically, after the crew of the ship changed, the sightings were no longer reported either. So I mean, maybe these 2 were just playing a really sick joke on their former crewmen. They're like, ha ha ha, we may be dead, but at least we're having a good time. Now at number 2 is the little boy, and this picture was captured so clearly that I'm still like, is this Photoshop? Is this actually real? You guys tell me. So back in 2008, Neil Sandbach, a photographer, was on a farm in Hertfordshire taking pictures for a couple who wanted to have their wedding at the location. When Neil was going through his digitals later on, he saw one picture that had what appeared to be a glowing ghost figure of a little boy peeking out from the corner of the building. And can you see he's so clearly there? I can even make out his facial features, which creeped me out even more because his face looks more like a skull than it does a face. The couple later asked the farm staff if they had ever seen anything paranormal or weird at the farm, and a lot of them shared that they had seen a young boy in white night clothes. So I mean, say no more. I hope you didn't have your wedding there. That's just not a good omen to start your married life on. You know what I mean? Ghosts of little boys? No. I'm trying for happily ever after, not happily never after. You know what I mean? And finally, at number 1 is the man. This footage was captured on a car's dash cam in Thailand's Surat Thani province back in 2018. It was about 2:30 in the morning and this car is just going down the highway when a man in blue shorts and a white shirt literally materializes out of nowhere. The car goes right through the man, and when the man turned around to check, the ghost was nowhere to be found. I just don't get how he appeared from literally nothing. He just came out of the ether. Most people who've seen the footage think it was a ghost, whereas skeptics think it was a shadow being reflected in front of the car somehow, which I mean, make that make sense to me. I don't understand how that works. Reflection of what? The rear view mirrors are pointed behind you. What is reflecting in front of me? Please tell me. Exactly, that's what I thought. And I'm not even a car mechanic.
In at number 10, we have a ghostly follower in the Rockies. Okay, so one Reddit user uploaded a post called "My Dad Had a Follower in the Evergreen" featuring pictures of a ghostly presence following a man. Just some backstory for you guys. iPhones have this new live picture option where they capture a few seconds of footage when you shoot a picture. Just remember that, because it's important. This picture was taken of a man in the Rocky Mountains area of Colorado. He's just there having a lovely time under a tree, but hello, look closer. Who is that in the grass? If you play the live version of the picture, you can even see a figure walking behind him. The man went back to the same spot after he saw the figure behind him to investigate further. The figure looks like it was walking in long grass behind the man, but when he went back and snapped this second picture, you can see that it isn't really that long after all. Was a ghost actually stalking him the whole time? Maybe. And where are its legs? Next up, let's look at a ghost allegedly caught on film. In at number 9, we have the slamming door ghost. This video is in Polish, I think, so it's a little bit difficult to decipher what is actually going on before the alleged haunting. The video uploaded in March 2015 shows a guy, presumably on his computer, when a poltergeist starts kicking off. The spirit bangs on the door and then throws a stack of games off the shelf. The guy in the video runs away out of his apartment and the poltergeist even follows him, knocking over an exercise bike as he flees. I have to say, this is pretty terrifying. I actually used to work in a theatre in London and they're really old places filled with high drama, so I can absolutely believe that this next scary ghost was indeed caught on camera. In at number 8, don't laugh because I think it's legit, we have a wig ghost at the Victoria Palace Theatre in London. Yes, a wig ghost. It has been long discussed that there is a ghost haunting the Victoria Palace Theatre in London, especially in the costume department. At the time of this recording, the show Billy Elliot was running at the venue. Posted on the official Billy Elliot YouTube channel, we can witness a poltergeist throwing wigs around the dressing room and even knocking mannequin heads off the shelves. The creepiest part of this whole video for me is one of the mannequin heads at the top left in the middle. Watch it. Yep. It does slowly turn to look at you. For me, yeah, no. Another ghost caught on camera in the theatre is thought to have been a victim of the London beer flood of 1814. In at number 7, we have a scary photobombing theatre ghost. London's Dominion Theatre is built on the site of the fatal beer flood. So back in the 1800s at a brewery, several vats of beer exploded, causing a tidal wave of hundreds of thousands of gallons of beer to surge through the nearby area. 8 people died, including Eleanor Cooper, a teenager working at the pub at the time. It's quite possible that this is Eleanor that we can see photobombing a couple as they sit in the theatre's stall section. The pair are smiling as they prepare to take in We Will Rock You, but the ghost is far from happy. Look at her face. Yikes. From one photobombing ghost to another, next up we have a demonic wedding ghost. My favourite kind. Weddings are a time for happiness and joy, not hauntings. Although this ghost did not get the memo. Newly married couple Kevin and Christina Dennis from Virginia were celebrating their big day when this picture was snapped. On the day, the pair didn't know anything was wrong, but when they uploaded their wedding photos to Facebook, a friend pointed out the ghostly figure between them. I for one cannot decide whether it looks like a baby or an evil face with a toothy smile. Either way, no. Just go ghost go away and leave me to getting wed. Next up at number 5, a ghost spotted at an accident scene. If this is real, then this is more sad than scary, but at the same time actually, it is pretty terrifying. Sol Vasquez was driving by an accident scene in Kentucky and took this picture. After snapping it, he immediately noticed a blurry human-shaped image floating above the scene. After posting the image on Facebook, it quickly went viral, with many saying it was the spirit of the man injured. Sol didn't actually know what was going on. He stated in the picture description that he took the picture from the cab of his truck and he hoped that everyone involved was okay. Little did he know that the accident involved a motorcyclist who was later taken to hospital where they died. Could this have been his ghost or his spirit leaving his body? Could it have been an angel watching over him? Or could it just be a smudge or a photographic anomaly? We just don't know. From a motorcyclist who died in hospital to a ghostly child snapped stalking the halls of a hospital, in at number 4 we have Ghost Girl. A worker at Leeds Infirmary Hospital in Yorkshire, England snapped a picture of an empty corridor as he was about to start his shift. He was Snapchatting his girlfriend, sending her a goodnight message with visuals of his current surroundings. Sounds weird, but I do that kind of thing all the time. After he took the picture, however, he spotted what looked like a girl wearing a Victorian era style dress walking through a wall. The hospital was built in 1869, so this could be the ghost of a young girl who died here. The worker, Andrew Milburn, said he wasn't a believer in ghosts, but this picture had vexed him. Others who worked in the hospital wing said that they had even heard footsteps in the past when no one had been around. Getting scarier still, in at number 3 we have a ghost in an abandoned mental asylum. Why would someone want to visit an abandoned mental asylum? I do not know. But they did, and they snapped this picture. Do you see it yet? That's right, peekaboo, not so abandoned now, is it? The asylum in Brecon, Wales also used to be a prisoner of war camp in World War II. The picture was taken by a walker named Adam Smith as he strolled by. He said maybe it was a patient who had a lobotomy, or perhaps a soldier patient from the war, or even a Nazi prisoner. Whatever it was, it certainly gave me a fright. When you zoom in on this picture, the spooky figure looks a lot like the Joker. Way too much like the Joker for my liking actually, so let's just move right on. Creepier still, at number 2 we have Joseph Chancellum's haunted apartment. So there's a guy named Joseph Chancellums who for a while back in 2012 lived in a pretty haunted apartment. Over the course of his stay, he documented some ghostly goings on. He uploaded 8 different videos of his hauntings to YouTube, and haunting number 5 is pretty legit. We see Joseph sleeping while someone, or something, turns a light on in the bathroom, then proceeds to turn the taps on. Sure, it doesn't look fake, but it could be. However, I absolutely cannot argue with his video number 7, where he has simply set up a camera on a tripod in the bathroom, shooting straight at the mirror. We can see what's going on in front, and because of the mirror, we can see what's going on behind. I do not see how this can be faked. The video picks up a tap suddenly turning on, then the camera starts shaking on the tripod, even though you can see that there is nobody in the room. I don't understand how those taps must have come on right in front of our eyes, seriously. The video has been watched 400,000 times, and I for one am kind of convinced. Okay, so we are there at the number 1 spot, and this video freaked me out the absolute most. In at number 1 we have a ghost caught on camera in an abandoned mine. So there are some videos out there on YouTube and some images that are clearly faked, but I came across this video and I don't know, like, it really freaked me out. It made me feel very uneasy. Uploaded to YouTube by user Exploring Abandoned Mines, a guy explores the abandoned Horton mine. On first encounter, he ventures into the mouth of the mine, and a chain attached to the ceiling starts to swing uncontrollably and unexpectedly. You can't officially see a ghost, but I do have a really bad feeling about what is swinging the chain. There's no real reason for it, and he himself, as he's narrating, is saying that he's feeling pretty freaked out. He was freaked out enough that he went back the next year, and this one just gets even scarier. He goes to the same abandoned mine, he ventures further in, and this time he hears a voice. You can listen to the audio with the dripping of the cave removed on Reddit, and it's really bone chilling. Some people are saying the voice sounds like, "Why trespass? Are you ready to die? You have came too close to us, now go." A lot of people are saying that this is in a thick French accent. There's then clearly a siren afterwards, and I don't know what's going on, but I do know that I don't want to watch that video ever again. It is spine tingling, even from the comfort of my own home. But I would say you guys should watch the video just once, just so you can freak out with me right here.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Heart Feaster. This is one thing that I will never want in my life, and I am pretty confident that it will never happen to me, and that is sleep paralysis. Being stuck in a state where you can't move as you hallucinate in the dark sounds like something so villainous even Freddy Krueger wouldn't do it. He'd be like, at least kill them after, don't just let them sit there all night, that's gross. Luckily I sleep like a log, so there's no chance anything like that is going to happen to me, but for some others this can happen quite often. When people are stuck in sleep paralysis, it can be something as simple as having the feeling that someone is watching you as you're sleeping, while other people will have the Heart Feaster. A story online talked about a horrible entity that would come visit someone as they slept. They named this beast the Heart Feaster because it would lurk into their room when they couldn't move, and then it would crawl on top of them. The creature looked like its body was made out of a dark crimson, and it had long fingers that were almost like claws. Its face resembled a demon with a long pointed nose and jagged teeth. While this person was stuck and unable to move, the Heart Feaster would reach its long piercing fingers into their chest and pull out their heart and start eating it in front of them. Wow. At number 9 we have the Stalker. This next story was told by a young boy who grew up in a very old house. He said strange creaking noises coming from all over the home at any time of night was very common, but what wasn't common was something called the Stalker. Every now and again he would see something out of the corner of his eye. He wouldn't think that it was anything and he would just go on about his business. That was until he saw it. It was something he called the Stalker. He said it looked like the girl from The Ring, but it was on all fours. When he looked at it, the Stalker just stayed in one spot for what felt like an eternity. The ghost was locked in one spot until it scampered into another room. He told his parents about it, but he brushed it off and said it was a dream. However, our writer was certain that it happened because he went to investigate the spot where the Stalker was, and there were 2 wet handprints on the floor. At number 8 we have a short one. Some of my favorite ghost stories are the short ones. It's impressive what you can do with a few sentences. This one goes like this. I woke to the baby monitor crackling with a voice comforting my firstborn. As I adjusted to my new position, my arm brushed my wife sleeping next to me. Ooh, that is creepy. Coming in at number 7 we have imaginary friends. You would be surprised how many kids have imaginary friends that end up being ghosts. In fact, I did a multi-part series on Most Amazing Top 10 all about this. One of the most horrific stories I read about this was a young boy and girl used to have the same imaginary friend. It was just a voice that they would hear. It kept telling them to go into the woods behind their home. They would just ignore it and they really didn't think much of it. In fact, they didn't even know that the other sibling was hearing the voice until they brought it up with each other years later. The scariest part about this was when their younger sister, who was just old enough to talk, started saying that she could hear a voice that told her to go play outside in the trees. Ho ho. Coming in at number 6 we have glowing eyes. A girl was walking home late one night and she can feel something is off. She's not sure what it could be, but she knows she doesn't feel safe. She looks back over her shoulder and she sees a tall man in a trench coat who seems to be swaying side to side as he walks towards her. He's about 30 feet away and she can't make out his face except for a massive grin. This is obviously extremely frightening, so this young lady starts to move quickly, but it seems no matter how fast she moves, he keeps gaining on her. Eventually, she starts running and she can hear laughter start to come from behind her. She's now sprinting and looks back over her shoulder to see how close this man is, and the last thing she sees is the man right behind her with his massive eyes that are glowing red. Coming in at number 5 we have grave robbers. This is a pretty famous story about 2 young boys who wanted to give a scare to their friends. Now, is this story true or is it just an urban legend? It's hard to tell. Apparently there were 2 kids who loved to play pranks on people. One day they decided they wanted to play the ultimate prank by digging up a dead body and scaring their friends with it. So they went to the local graveyard in the middle of the night and they started digging. When they finally worked their way down to the body, they started cheering in excitement. The people living nearby heard the noises and they thought that the dead were rising from their graves. graves. They ran and attacked the two boys, mistaking them for zombies. They were both killed and now their ghosts haunt the graveyard. Coming at number 4, we have voodoo priestesses of New Orleans. New Orleans has a long history of voodoo, and apparently there are people who live out in the bayou who have found a way to communicate with the dead. They will talk to the spirits of the dead who have been left to walk the earth without anyone to listen to them. Because these voodoo practitioners have spent the time learning how to talk to spirits, they can command power over them. They can use the dark magic of the dead to cast spells on people, bringing them misfortune. That really sounds like it sucks. Coming at number 3, we have another short one. Alright, we have room for one more short scary ghost story before I hit you with the top 2. I think this one might be my favorite short ghost story of all time, and it goes like this. My daughter won't stop crying and screaming in the middle of the night. I visit her grave and ask her to stop, but it doesn't help. Oh, that gives me goosebumps. Coming in at number 2, we have My Friend in the Basement. A young girl who is about 5 years old moves into a new home with her mom. The two of them love the place, but the mother notices something strange about her daughter. She spends a lot of time in the basement, talking and laughing like there's someone there. Sometimes she'll walk down to check on her to see who she's talking to, and every time there's no one there. One day her daughter comes back upstairs with a bite mark on her arm, and her daughter says, "Richard bit me." Her mom tells her that she is not allowed to play in the basement anymore. Then that night something attacks her daughter in her bed. The mother rushes in the room when she hears the poor daughter screaming. When she finds her daughter, she's still alive, but she has scratch marks all over her body. The next morning the two of them leave the home, never to return. And at the number 1 spot we have the taps. Something that ghosts love to do is turn on the taps and jack up your water bill. If you go online and search for this, you will find countless stories of ghosts who love to mess around with the water. This one was pulled off of Reddit, and it was about a young girl who was living alone, and she was often woken up by the sounds of running water. At first she thought that maybe she forgot to turn off the taps, but it started happening so frequently that she assumed that she was sleepwalking. But then it started happening when she wasn't home. Terrified that someone was breaking into her house when she wasn't there, she called the police. They came to check out the place, but they couldn't find anything. So her next best move was to set up cameras and spend the night at a friend's house. Then she saw it, the taps in the home turning on by themselves. Now it's time to go down the spiritual route and have someone come in and fix the ghost problem. A medium came through to contact the ghost, and it turns out there was a body of a girl who had been drowned in a tub that was in the home, who had been buried under the house. That is spooky.
Starting us off at number 10 is Maple Hill Cemetery. Founded in 1822, this cemetery is the oldest and largest burial ground in the state, where roughly 80,000 people have been laid to rest. But with that many souls in one place, it only takes a matter of time before people start noticing something strange happening. While during the day, you may be spared from witnessing a horrifying spirit, it's said at night the tortured souls are unearthed, roaming the grounds in search of answers. Most unsettling is the park on the property, also known as the Dead Playground. Oh gee, that sounds inviting, don't you think? Apparently it's nicknamed that as many young people are buried in the area, and visitors brave enough to see for themselves what goes on claim that at night the trapped souls of the young can be seen playing around the park, while their creepy giggles echo throughout the grounds. But whatever you do, make sure you pay respect to Mary Bibb. If you knock on her mausoleum walls, she will reply with a gentle creak of her rocking chair buried inside. But if you forget to greet her, well, she just might haunt you forever. Coming in at number 9 is Fort Morgan. Said to be one of the most haunted places in all of Alabama, Fort Morgan is rife with ghoulish tales of ghosts and strange occurrences. The most notorious is that of a prisoner who's said to have died here in the early 1900s after he took his own life in the barracks. People say that if you walk past, you can still hear him crying out late at night, but he's not the only one you should fear. There's also a female spirit that wanders the grounds in search of justice after she too lost her life after being dragged into the fort and beaten to death by mysterious attackers who were never caught for the crime. Many believe she is an angry spirit with a vengeance who will torture any man who steps foot on the property. So if I were you, I'd skip this one. Next up at number 8 is Drish House. Once the home of Dr. John R. Marsh, a gambler and a drunk who built the estate in 1835 for his beloved bride Sarah. The couple lived in the home for 32 years until one day John had too much to drink for the last time and drunkenly tumbled over the stairway, falling to his demise. But you might be surprised that it's not his spirit that's trapped here, actually his wife Sarah. While no one knows for sure what keeps her soul trapped on the property, some say she was so traumatized after finding her husband dead in their home and wasn't able to recover. Others believe, however, that she refuses to leave because her family failed to honor her own funeral wishes, and so she remains, causing trouble to anyone who steps foot on the property to this day. While today the manor is used for many celebrations, Sarah remains, tormenting guests of the events, trying to get them to leave. If you're brave enough to visit, try looking up at the 3rd-story tower. It says you can catch a glimpse of her up there. Just be careful she doesn't see you looking, or she may just follow you around the property, terrorizing you until you leave. Next up at number 7, the Old Bryce Hospital. There are few places in this world more haunted than an old abandoned mental health facility, and there is no denying that the torment that went on here is a huge reason as to why so many spirits remain haunting its grounds, seeking revenge. Built during the segregation era of America, the building was branded as an insane asylum for those suffering from mental illnesses, when in reality it was pretty much a work camp for able-bodied black people who were admitted under false pretenses and then forced into slave labor, working in the fields around the hospital. Shockingly, the facility remained open until 1977 and only closed due to new desegregation laws. It comes as no surprise that after years of abuse and inhumane living conditions suffered by the so-called patients, that people claim to have had strange experiences while visiting. Those who've dared to visit the abandoned hospital claim the souls are angry, and that as soon as you walk in you can feel the air shift. Many report hearing strange noises, and some even claim to have seen shadowy figures lurking around every corner. Next up at number 6 is St. James Hotel. For whatever reason, hotels tend to be a pretty big hotspot for paranormal encounters, and the St. James Hotel is definitely a part of that phenomenon. Back in the day it was the first hotel operated by a black congressman, and despite having many years of success, it hit hard times in the late 1800s and was eventually forced to close its doors to the public. Fast forward about 100 years to 1997 and the hotel reopened, but this time something was off about the building. Something just wasn't right. During its century-long time as an abandoned building, it became a horrifying hub for lost souls, and I guess they decided to remain, haunting all those that dare stay the night. Visitors claim seeing full-bodied apparitions sitting at the bar, or witness lights shutting off out of nowhere. But most creepy of all was a recorded visit when a psychic research team was brought in, and they walked the grounds asking if anyone was there, but they never heard a response back. But later on, when they played the tapes, an older man's voice responded saying, "Well, that's a stupid question," making everyone in the room jump. So, what do you say? Are you brave enough to pay the ghosts a visit? Coming in at number 5, Kahaba Ghost Town. It likely comes as no surprise that a ghost town is also home to thousands of unsettling spirits, but few are more terrifying than Kahaba. Once the capital city of Alabama, it was abandoned after the Civil War when terrible flooding led to most of the buildings falling into complete disrepair, and so the citizens who survived were forced to leave for good. Today, nothing remains but the ruins of what used to be, including a church, a few cemeteries, and the Barker Mansion and its slave quarters. And I mean, that is just all the ingredients for a haunted ghost town if I've ever heard of one. Those that have tried to visit the once booming city recount that as soon as you enter the town's borders, cell service gets spotty and unreliable, only to be completely fine as soon as you step even 1 foot off the border of the town. While that alone might not scare visitors away, there are also countless numerous reports of visitors witnessing terrifying apparitions and hearing the voices of the dead crying out at night for revenge. So visit at your own risk, but don't say I didn't warn you. Coming in at number 4 is the Boyington Oak. Of all the things that are usually haunted, like cemeteries, hospitals, churches, the last thing you'd likely expect to need to be afraid of was a tree. But trust me, this is no ordinary tree. The Boyington Oak is said to have grown from the grave of one Mr. Charles Boyington. As the legend goes, back in 1835, Charles was accused of friend Nathaniel Frost. Charles disputed the accusation and never once wavered from his alleged innocence. Still, he was found guilty for the crime and sentenced to execution as payback. But right before he was executed, he declared in front of everyone that a tree would spring forth from his grave as a proof of his innocence, and then they would all see that they had caught the wrong man. And shockingly, this is exactly what happened. Many claim that Charles's spirit haunts the tree above his grave, often freaking out those who come to visit. Even spookier is that some claim to have even seen him sitting under the tree waiting. But just who is he waiting for? No one knows exactly. Coming in at number 3 is Sloth's furnaces. Once built as a means to access iron ore, coal, and limestone, the Sloth's furnaces were far from a safe place to work. It's believed over the years at least 47 men lost their lives working at the furnaces due to the incredibly dangerous work conditions. But the most talked about is that of James Slag Wormwood, a former foreman of the furnaces known for being cruel to his employees and who died after slipping and falling into a pool of molten iron ore. Although there is rumor he may have been pushed by his workers, forced to the brink after his unending abuse. Still, after Wormwood's death, strange things started happening more and more frequently. Workers were seeing strange things, hearing strange noises, and started to feel like they were going crazy. Employees were being found injured or seen tripping and falling out of nowhere. Each of them recounted that an angry man covered in burns had tried to push them after screaming at them to get back to work. Then in 1971, a watchman encountered what he described as a half-man, half-demon who tried to push him up the stairs. After the watchman refused the spirit's advance, he was badly beaten by the entity until he fell unconscious. Later, while being examined, he was found to be covered in severe burns where he says he was beaten. So unless you're looking to be beaten up by an angry spirit and covered in burns from the blows, I might suggest a different place for your visit. Coming in at number 2 is Bear Creek Swamp. Even at the best of times, swamps give off spooky and creepy vibes, and this one might just be the worst of them all. Legend has it that many years ago, a woman's son went missing. Scared, the mother went looking for him in the nearby swamp, hoping that he had simply run away from home. But no matter how long she looked, she could never find him. It's said she died in the swamp looking for him, and if you walk into the swamp today and say, "We have your baby," 3 times, she will come out of nowhere and attack you until you leave for good. And don't even try to come back after she's banished you. You might not be so lucky the second time around. And last up today in our number 1 spot is Sweetwater Mansion. Designed by war vet General John Brahan, this mansion was named after the nearby creek and first occupied by the general's son-in-law, Robert Patton. Under Patton's jurisdiction, the basement of the mansion served as a Civil War hospital and a county jail. And if that wasn't enough, it's said that at one point someone who lived in the mansion practiced dark magic, which thinned the veil between worlds. This would make sense considering just how many people have witnessed earth-shattering apparitions that sent them running for the hills. Most notably is the casket that contains a body of a Confederate soldier in one of the downstairs rooms that will suddenly disappear right in front of your eyes. It's believed that the casket is haunted by the spirit of original owner Robert Patton, whose funeral was held at the home and who was documented having an open casket ceremony. But that's not even the scariest part. There's a room on the property that routinely locks female visitors inside. In fact, it happens so frequently that caretakers of the property have avoided entering it at all costs. And if a self-locking door and a terrifying soldier ghost don't turn you off of the property, there is also a secret room on the property with no door. The only way to enter is by a small window, and it's believed that anyone who goes in will never escape. So if I were you, I'd skip this one. Starting off at number 10, Jackson Square. Located in the infamous French Quarter in New Orleans, Jackson Square is riddled with terrifying spirits wreaking vengeance. Historically, the square was used for public executions, and it's believed that all who died there haunt the grounds looking for revenge on those who took their life. Those that walk through have felt like they're being followed or seen unexplainable lights and shadows in their photos, and all leave feeling confused and scared that something was trying to get them. So if you are planning to visit, just be careful where you step foot, cause you might not be so lucky as those that have tried before. Next up at number 9, Lefit's Blacksmith Shop. Despite its name, Lefit's Blacksmith Shop is actually now a bar, and although it may look like a cute old building from the outside, it holds a few terrifying secrets that haunt the locals to this day. It's believed to be haunted by the infamous brothers Jean and Pierre Lefit, a pirate duo who used the shop as a front for their smuggling operation quite successfully for many years. The brothers were eventually arrested for their operation, and perhaps that explains why the spirits have never left. Now a bar for locals, the ghost of Lefit has been seen by many, haunting the pub along with a mysterious woman that appears suddenly in the mirror on the second floor. No one knows just who she is, but those that have witnessed her apparitions were sent running in terror and have never returned. Coming in at number 8, Our Lady of Guadalupe Church. To date, it is the oldest church in New Orleans, so it's no surprise that it also is one of the most haunted places in the city. Back in the day, the building was used as a sort of pseudo-morgue, where they would house bodies waiting to be transferred to the St. Louis Cemetery. Over the years, the church housed many victims of yellow fever and even a few people that had been killed, and it seems the souls stuck to the church despite being buried elsewhere. Those that enter feel immediately watched and have this terrible, eerie feeling that they can't seem to shake. While no one has seen apparitions yet, locals agree that there is no doubt it is haunted, and many avoid it if they can. Next up at number 7, the Haunted Hotel. Very appropriately named, this hotel is the known site of at least 12 killings, and the infamous Axeman of New Orleans is said to have lived at this very hotel during his notorious rampage of the city. Years later, a bloody axe was found at the hotel when undergoing renovations, and it's now actually displayed in the lobby for all to see. Those that have dared to stay at the haunted hotel have witnessed terrifying apparitions, and many have left in the middle of the night fearing that the spirit of the Axeman had come back to hurt them. So stay if you dare, but beware, as it could be your last night in this realm if you do. Next up at number 6, the Jamani Lounge. The site of a tragic fire in 1973, the Jamani Lounge is one of the newer haunted locations in New Orleans. The upstairs lounge at Jamani was a gay bar at the time, when somebody intentionally committed arson, killing 32 of the patrons and brutally injuring hundreds more. The upstairs lounge never reopened, but to this day, the ghosts of the men who died there haunt the halls looking for answers and seeking revenge on whoever did this to them. Visitors of the Jamani bar say that they feel the presence of the tormented souls and often cite inexplicable icy chills, hearing voices when no one is around, and even the smell of burning flesh. So enter if you dare, but make it clear you come in peace, as you never know what might happen if you make the wrong move. Coming in at number 5, the Hotel Monteleone. Built in 1886, the Hotel Monteleone was once a beloved place to rest your head for the night, but it's now a terrifying place full of spirits that shock all who enter. Sadly, many died from yellow fever at the hotel, and the spirits continue to haunt the halls to this day. They can be heard running around the 13th floor, and some guests have even witnessed the spirits asking to play hide and seek or reaching for their hands, saying they're lost, only to disappear as soon as they make eye contact. Another haunting entity is William Wilder, a guest who was killed while staying in the hotel, but there are countless other spirits walking the halls that have yet to be named. Over the years, paranormal investigators have visited, attempting to get the spirits on camera, but all they've captured are creepy encounters that make their spine tingle. Next up at number 4, the Bowardkais House. Now a museum, this house was once home to Confederate General Pierre Beauregard, the Sicilian Mafia, and later beloved author Francis Keyes. Ghosts from the Civil War are believed to haunt the museum, and many guests claim to have heard loud footsteps or even seen bloody soldiers, missing limbs with their faces blown off, wandering the grounds, staring blankly into the distance. Legend says Paul Morphy, an acclaimed chess player during the 19th century, was born in this haunted house, and it's believed he was driven mad while living there, becoming possessed by a demon and running down the street with an axe, threatening to kill anyone who came near him. He was later found dead in that same house, and is believed he haunts it among the soldiers and victims of the mafia to this day. Coming in at number 3, Muriels' Seance Lounge. Back in 1788, Pierre Jordan purchased the building now known as Muriels' Seance Lounge, only days before one of the worst fires to ever hit New Orleans. Determined to fix things, Jordan rebuilt the building and soon called it home. But sadly, Jordan had quite the gambling problem and risked his home on a steep bet while playing poker, and sadly lost his home forever. As the legend goes, Jordan was so distraught about losing his home, he hung himself on the second floor so as not to have to live without it. Today the building is full of spirits. People have heard a strange woman's voice coming from the walls during seances, and many say it is not unusual to witness objects flying across the room or see glasses shattering throughout the courtyard. Some believe the seances have allowed too many spirits to enter and fear that the spirits are becoming angrier and angrier as the years go by. So enter if you dare, just be careful you don't get possessed while contacting one of the many spirits that haunt the halls. Next up at number 2, Myrtles Plantation. On top of being the site of many tortured slaves during the 18th and 19th century, the Plantation House, now a haunted bed and breakfast, is rumored to be built on top of an ancient burial ground. The most famous ghost that roams the ground is Claire, a slave of the family who poisoned the mother and daughters after having her ear cut off for listening to conversations through a keyhole in the door. Chloe was killed after poisoning the family and is believed to walk the grounds wearing a green turban and terrorizing guests. But she is not alone. At least 12 other ghosts are known to haunt the grounds to this day, including the family that owned the plantation and other souls of the tragic deaths on the property. Visitors have witnessed inexplicable handprints or faces suddenly appearing in mirrors, and the apparition of a girl who will practice voodoo on sleeping guests. So unless you are looking to get possessed in your sleep, it might be best to look for another place to stay. And last up in our number 1 spot, the Ursuline Convent. Back in the 1700s, the convent was run by nuns and housed casket girls. Casket girls were young women who had come from France to marry colonists and got their name from the casket-shaped boxes containing their belongings that they were holding when they arrived. After their arrival, strange things started happening and the girls started disappearing. Locals declared them to be vampires out to kill them. The 3rd floor had been where they were residing, and to protect the nuns and other citizens of the town, it was decided the doors would be sealed shut with nails blessed by the Pope, and no one ever dared set foot on the floor again. That was until 1978, when 2 paranormal investigators wanted some answers to the legend and camped out in front of the convent. As the legend goes, the 2 dozed off during their investigation, and the next morning, the doors that were previously nailed shut had wiggled loose and the investigators were found dead, torn open and drained of their blood. So if I were you, I would leave this off of the list of visiting spots. Starting us off at number 10, the Old Red Field Road. Said to be extremely active with spirits, keep your eyes peeled if you ever find yourself driving down this road. Those that try find that their flashlights and radios suddenly stop working, and some even say their cars begin acting up as soon as they start to approach. One driver in fact said that the hood of their car flew open on sight, and when they went to go and check it out, their there was no explanation for why it would have done that. Visitors claim that countless ghosts roam the road, walking up and down, likely coming from the nearby cemetery, and that they feel a sense of deep, unsettling anxiety until they turn off the old Redfield Road. So maybe if you do visit, just find an alternate route. Next up at number 9, Cotter Bridge. Located in a small town of less than 900 people, during the day the bridge is a world-renowned hotspot for trout fishing, visited by residents and tourists alike. But things take a turn after the sun goes down, and locals say that this bridge is haunted by some truly terrifying spirits. Residents say that at night you can hear the cries of an infant coming from the bridge, and the sounds of young people playing for hours and hours. But most haunting of all is the woman who can be seen sprinting from vicious hounds. No one knows who she is or why she's being chased, but the fear of her screaming voice has scared residents from ever daring to get too close. Coming in at number 8, Fort Smith Courthouse. During the late 19th century, Fort Smith was the site of many sentenced to be hanged. In fact, it was rather notorious for it, as the presiding judge at the time, named Isaac C. Parker, got the nickname the Hanging Judge from sentencing a whopping 160 people to their death, 79 of which received the punishment. The hangings happened outside the courthouse in the gallows, perhaps as a warning sign for all to see what happened to criminals. And it's believed the condemned men of the jail still roam the grounds seeking revenge on Isaac Parker. Many today say they've had frightening experiences while at the courthouse, especially in the gallows. Visitors claim to have heard gavels banging, seen ropes swinging when there was no wind, and one groundskeeper even claims to have spoken with the ghost of Isaac Parker himself. Next up at number 7, the Clayton House. Originally built in the 1800s as a Civil War hospital, it wasn't until 1882 when William Clayton moved his family into the now historical home. The family seemed to have a fairly happy life in their home, but I guess with roots as a hospital, ghosts flock to it and continue to haunt it to this day. The former director of the site, Martha, says that as soon as she started working there, she knew something was off. Doors would slam in the middle of the night, she would hear footsteps from down the hall when no one was there, and one room on the second floor would always sound like music was playing from inside. Then in 2008, a carpenter who was doing some repairs on the building took pictures to keep track of the progress, but when those photos got developed, he saw a woman dressed in brown lurking in the back of one of his photos, and he wasn't the only one to claim to have seen her lurking in the corners. After a while, Clayton's house had kind of a reputation, and so paranormal investigators started visiting, and using EVPs they got recordings of a man shouting obscenities at someone named Anna, which piqued their interest as one of Clayton's daughters was named Anne. But maybe most terrifying was one woman who says that she was standing by herself in the hotel when her hair was tugged hard. She turned around to see who had snuck up on her, assuming it was a prank, but no one was around and she was all alone. Next up at number 6, the Toltec Mounds. A hiking trail might not be the first place you'd expect to be terrifyingly haunted, but it makes much more sense once you know that it leads through the remains of an ancient civilization. More officially referred to as the Plum Bayou Mounds, there were once home to a large group of people beginning around 600 AD. But what no one has been able to figure out since is their sudden and mysterious disappearance in 1050 AD. It's thought that the mounds were used for a variety of different purposes, but we know for sure that at least one was a burial ground, and as you can imagine, that is where most of the ghost sightings have occurred. Visitors who pass through the trail say they've seen strange apparitions of what looked like ancient people, along with mysterious orbs of light popping out of nowhere, and some say that if you walk by at night, you'll hear footsteps of the ancient civilization that will send you running as far away as you can. Coming Coming in at number 5, the Basin Park Hotel. This hotel has long been the site of many paranormal sightings, although no one knows exactly why so many ghosts conjugate in this building. One belief is because the hotel possesses magical abilities due to the famous spring waters that it's built beside. During the 1800s, the indigenous people of the area talked about their holy springs, and it led many to believe that Eureka Springs had healing powers that could cure ailments and crippling conditions. Maybe these holy waters are what make the spirits more visible to the human eye today. Most famously, in room 307 lies the ghost of a cowboy who's been known to taunt the guests who stay there, waking them up in the middle of the night. Other entities that visitors claim to have witnessed are the young, translucent woman with steel blue eyes and cotton candy blonde hair, as well as a girl who runs around in pigtails and a yellow dress. Those that stay say they often see various orbs of light appearing around the grounds as if out of nowhere, and that objects will move all on their own very frequently. So if I were you, I'd just find a different hotel to stay at on your visit. Coming in at number 4, the King Opera House. While it's safe to assume you'd expect some kind of drama at the opera, usually it's left to the actors on stage. Said to be haunted by the ghost of a young actor named Charles Tolson, many believe they've seen the famous man roam the halls where he had his last performance ever. As the story goes, Tolson was a talented young man and owner of a traveling actors company that happened to be performing at the King Opera House for a week at the end of September in 1903. Tolson caught the eye of a young woman named Allie Parchman, who was just 17 but bored to death by her town and looking for adventure. But Allie's father got word that she intended to leave town with the young man and elope, and this made him furious. Her father ran down to the opera house to confront Tolson and kill him. When he arrived, he shot him 3 times, and although Tolson didn't die then, his life was over by the next day while in the hospital. Visitors of the opera house say they feel a strange sensation when they enter, like they're being watched constantly, and some even claim to have witnessed him lurking the halls in his Victorian cape and top hat. Next up at number 3, the Crescent Hotel and Spa. Not only is this Victorian beauty believed to be one of the most haunted places in Arkansas, but some have even said it might be one of the most haunted places in all of America. Before its time as a haunted hotel, it was a hospital run by a crooked doctor who fooled his cancer patients into thinking that there was a cure. So as you can imagine, it's riddled with spirits with a vengeance. Over the years, countless guests and staff have come forward telling their tales, claiming to have heard strange sensations, slamming doors, abrupt waking in the middle of the night, and even seeing full-bodied apparitions while staying in room 218. It is believed that the room is haunted by the ghost of Michael, who was a builder for the hotel that fell off the roof to his death back in 1885 and landed right in front of where room 218 sits. Others claim they've seen a middle-aged man with a white mustache sitting at the bar who vanishes out of sight. And in 1987, a guest said they saw a nurse pushing a gurney down the hallway in the middle of the night. But maybe most terrifying of all is room 202, where allegedly someone managed to photograph a ghost and prove its existence. Coming in at number 2, the Peele Mansion. Back in 1875, this mansion was built by a man named Samuel Peele. He was a US congressman and he lived in the home with his daughter Minnie. Both Peele and Minnie are said to haunt the house today, roaming the halls dressed in white, and often Minnie will play the piano if no one is in the room. But despite being the people the mansion is named after, they might not be the creepiest ghosts to haunt its halls. After the Peele family sold the mansion, a couple named Mr. and Mrs. English moved in with their family. One of their daughters, Marjorie, however, became very ill, and after discovering that she'd suffered from a burst appendix, a surgeon informed the family that she was not going to make it. After 10 days, Marjorie died and they covered her body in a sheet. But creepily, only Only a few hours after being pronounced dead, someone saw the sheet move. Marjorie was alive and went on to live for many more healthy years. But this troubled some of the staff on the farm, who believed that her spirit hadn't gotten back into her body and was somehow trapped under that sheet that others had seen moving. Years went by and Marjorie went back to her childhood home, only to find that the room where people thought she had died was closed off. When she asked why, she was told it was haunted by a little girl. But the question was, is it Minnie or somehow the lost spirit from Marjorie's almost death? And last up in our number 1 spot, Highway 365. The legend began back in 1973 when a man picked up a girl on a bridge in the night. She was covered in bruises and cuts and looked very scared. She told the man that she had been in a car accident and asked if he could drive her home. The man complied, and when they got to the house she said was hers, she suddenly vanished from his car. Too stunned to realize what he'd just witnessed, the man went up to the door of the house anyway. The door was answered by the girl's father, who said that she had just died on that very bridge last month. But he wasn't the only one to see the girl in white, as she became known. The next year, a different man picked up a young woman on a bridge and drove her home. When they arrived, she asked if he could knock on the door since the house was dark. But when the door opened, the girl was gone, and the mother explained that her daughter had died 1 year earlier that same night. Finally, another year went by, and another man picked up the same girl dressed in white near a bridge in the rain. He offered her his coat to keep her warm, and when they got to her house, she vanished along with his coat. After talking with the dead girl's parent, who said she visits every year on the anniversary of her death, he went to visit the girl's headstone only to find his missing coat draped across it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'm Kennedy. I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.
This video is about abandoned places hiding dark secrets. We reveal some of the biggest and most well-known locations, as well as the locations you never would have thought of before. Click the video now to find out more!